Watering can is in hand, and that means, yeah, I'm gonna plant something, right? We're getting right into that high time of gardening where everything can happen at once. We can feel overwhelmed, we can feel really busy, like we don't have enough time. I'm right there with you, I feel that way every day. And it doesn't matter how prepared I am, it feels like everything comes on all of a sudden because when the temperature gets right, everything wakes up. So today is gonna be doing a few different tasks around the yard. We'll see what I have time for. We're gonna start with planting a few things in the vegetable garden. Now I know some of you may not have a vegetable garden, but I always think it's good to know where food comes from and maybe see how you could plant a few things too. While I might have a large vegetable garden, you can do this on any scale, and that's what I love about it. My brassicas are ready to go in, my broccoli, my cauliflower, my cabbage. I have heads of lettuce ready to go in. I'm gonna get those raised beds fully ready. I have them mostly ready. I'm hoping to walk around the yard a bit with you to show you what things are kind of waking up and where we're at, and then maybe do a little bit of maintenance on my fountain I installed with you last year. Just needs a little bit of cleaning up before the new season. So let's get started. So we are really walking right here into my vegetable garden. We have the garlic, we have rhubarb coming up, we have some shallots, some of those beautiful spring onions, and asparagus is just beginning to pop through. But what we are gonna go down and look at here are the 4 main beds. Now I rotate these beds every year. So every year they go to the next bed. So it's not that they're in the same spot until, 4 years from now, which is really nice. And that just helps for the best rotation to make sure, you don't have as many disease and soil-borne diseases, especially for tomatoes. But what I do every year is usually try to top dress my beds, which you can see I'm beginning to there. And I've already done this one for the most part. And really the important thing with raised beds is to keep this beautiful soil that you can easily work in. See how easy this is? So every year I top dress it with either a good quality compost, one I make at home, or something like this beautiful raised bed mix, which is what I'm using this year. This is the organic raised bed mix from Wyse, and what I like about it is it has just the right mixture for a raised bed, meaning it holds onto the moisture needed, but also releases it and lets it drain well. It is fluffy, it is loamy, and it has a little bit of everything in it. It has some worm castings. It's like a compost with the soil, so it really mixes together and makes for a perfect mix for these raised beds. Most of my seedlings here I date when I start them, so I planted all these February 28th this year. And they're getting a little big, but they're just about ready. So I have hardened them off slightly, but as you may remember every year when I do this, I actually put little plastic domes over them, usually old vinegar jugs that we have left over from canning over the years. And that is a way to harden them off without having to go through the process of putting them out, so much every day, a little bit at a time. So I kind of harden them off in the garden, which I can show you here once I get them planted. But really what I like to do is make sure I start getting acclimated to outside. So for the last few days, I have put them out into a little bit of sun every day. You usually should do it 1 to 2 weeks, but my dome is going to extend that time, creating a little greenhouse for them. But what I did, like I said, was I got all this soil ready. Now what you can do if you want to, I don't like to over fertilize, but I do like to add as much organic matter as I can. This raised bed mix has a beautiful organic matter. My homemade compost or a good purchase compost is going to. I do sometimes use that same biotone starter that I use in everything from Wyse. I will use that. You can put it, if you want to. You can really just sprinkle some of it onto the soil, kind of, lightly. You can also just put a little bit when you're planting it, just like you would any plant. So what I'm gonna do is take my little trowel here, and I'm gonna start working up some of these that I have ready to go. Now, I've been soil blocking a lot of my plants, not all of them. It just kind of depends, but I'm gonna show you what's nice about soil blocking is when you pull it out, see how they're in these little, you can look up a soil blocker if you don't know what that is, but you don't have to disturb the roots near as much. And they come out in these little squares because that's what the tool makes. But if you look, you can see all of those roots all around, and I don't have to rip them near up trying to get them out, which is really nice. Now, this black down here, this black tubing, this is my drip line that I move from bed to bed. I just hook a hose up to it. It doesn't have internal drip line. But this is what's nice is it has emitters. And then every year I space them about the same distance apart if I want to. Now, I am going to this year put a little bit of that starter from Wyse right in there. I just think it's really nice to kind of get those roots going a little bit. You don't have to, but I do think it can make a difference. Now, what I will say is essential, any seedling like this you're starting with a transplant, make sure it's well moistened, that it's watered well. I don't ever want to start off with something dry that's going to stress before it even starts. And then what I do make sure is I have it deep enough that it has a nice solid base. Now I don't want to cover up too much of the plant, obviously, but I do come up to about the first 2 true leaves of the seedling just to make sure, you can tell now, it has that perfect base and it feels very solid. Now, if I wasn't going to cover these with my little jugs, which I only do just in case we get cold, I would probably cover them with some type of row cover. I lately have been having a little issue. This is a new thing for me, but with birds. I didn't used to. But lately it seems like birds or something likes to come and peck holes in whatever I'm planting, which just, as you can imagine, doesn't make me too happy. So I have been trying to make sure if I don't cover them with a row cover or those jugs, that I want to do something. So it's just something last year was the first year that it was kind of extra bad, where a lot of my peppers I had to replant because of it. So it's something I'm watching. Every year there's something new and we just get to learn as we go. But the important thing is to watch the weather. I'm in zone 5B. And what that means is we technically, our last frost date is probably beginning early May sometime. It kind of depends. This year I haven't looked. We're getting a little bit earlier than we used to get past that frost date. But the important thing is to watch the weather. If I would get down too far, below 32, I would cover up even the plastic jugs I'm gonna put over the top with a blanket, with some type of sheet to keep them warm. Looking ahead, I'm not too worried, and that's why I'm planting them now. Otherwise, I do like to push the season, so you just have to watch. You may have to cover them if they go out too early. I'm finishing up my last 2. So I have planted probably about 13 cabbage, maybe 14 I should say, probably 14 cabbage. And then the rest is broccoli, cauliflower, totaling about 26 plants. I know it sounds like a lot, but the thing is, one, I use all this, for videos, but also during the summer, I really don't buy groceries. I pretty much use what the garden has, and I do lots of different varieties the reason I like to grow my seeds, I can use a lot of different varieties I can't always find that are already growing. Like this is Green Magic cauliflower. I do purple Sicily cauliflower, so I get those colors, which I love the colors of cauliflower. That purple of Sicily has been doing really well for me the last few years. That's the fun part about growing seeds. You can find ones that start doing really well for you, and then you can keep growing those. So it's kind of fun to learn, what does well and what doesn't. Now here in the beginning of the spring, we stay cool enough. Watering, it just depends, maybe every other day. And then these are the covers. Now, these are plastic. I probably should, over time I will find something that maybe isn't plastic, but this is what I always have and works. And you can see I push it down into the soil a couple inches. And this garden is a little bit more protected than you would think from the wind. So it actually works pretty well at safely just protecting these. Now it also protects them if we have a light frost. Now if it gets too cold, I would definitely need to kind of do something else. But if it's just a light frost, these do very well at protecting against that. And if you have little critters, these do really well until it gets to a bigger size, but obviously you would still need to protect them after that too. But this is what we always did growing up. We always covered them with these same jugs growing up, and obviously different ones then, but we go through so much vinegar every year with all the pickling and the canning that we do, quick pickling, that we end up having a lot. Now I have made some metal, or my stepdad actually made some metal little pins that I can put in, and that will keep this down if we do in fact get that windy. So I'll probably put those in eventually, but you can see it really doesn't take long to kind of get all this planted. Now, just as easy, you can find great varieties. Like I did Chinese cabbage, those beautiful tall Napa cabbage. I did purple cabbage. I did a Tete variety. Formosa or Savoy cabbage. A lot of these you can find at grocery stores. you can't maybe get specific varieties of each one, but you can find Savoy cabbages and Chinese cabbages and all of those. I did lots of them traditional, like Golden Acres, one of my favorite traditional cabbages, along with a few others. So all these are gonna now start growing, and we're having a lot of warmth already, so I think they're actually gonna grow really fast. All those brassicas now are tucked in so I can focus on my beautiful different heads of lettuce. I love growing heads of lettuce. So growing up, we never grew them indoors like this because we just planted rows of lettuce seed, which you can do, or a salad mix. What I like about growing them indoors is I can plant individual heads and have a nice head like you would buy in a grocery store. Now, when I'm doing this, same raised bed mix to top it off. And then I more like to sprinkle sometimes. Now, these I could also, but I'm just showing you the other way you can do it. You can sprinkle some of this biotone on top. It gives you the rate that you can do for for beds like this, for vegetable beds and stuff. You can just sprinkle it in, and that's gonna work down in because these roots have not rooted down deep. And these lettuce roots are always gonna be a little bit more shallow. So just working it in like this is gonna be a great thing to do. Now, when I'm working with this, again, these are all soil blocked. And I wanna show you, you can see I have 4 different rows of all these, but look how easy it is to take these out because they really come in almost like a sheet. Now what I'll do is I'm planting these. Some of these have more than one seedling, and we'll talk about that. But what I first like to do is kind of just lay them out roughly. And some of them I'm gonna actually split. But what's nice about this, and I have them labeled on the one end. So my one row, this row on the end, and I'll show that to you, is a seed that my grandma Alice, who lives about 5 minutes away now. That's who always lived in this house. That's who I purchased this house from, was Grandma and Grandpa, Alice and Jean. And she always saved this lettuce seed that was from her mom. So I now save it every year because I figure if she always saved it, I need to too, especially since she lived here. So every year I save the seed. I let a few heads go to seed because if you keep any plant in, even like lettuce, broccoli or cauliflower, same thing, even cabbage eventually, it will shoot up something out of the center and it will flower and it will go to seed. That's how really any plant, is able to keep going, is it starts creating seeds. That's kind of the purpose of a plant. But a lot of them, like lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, we pick before they're fully flowering. But if you want the seeds, that's what you do. So what I'm doing is just kind of laying out roughly all these. Now I'm gonna show you those because those are my grandma's. But if I come over to these, I'm gonna show you, if we go really close in, you can see here, there's 2 plants in here. And some of these I purposely left to do that because if you're really careful, and this can happen sometimes when you buy seeds too, or buy plants too, if you gently just start coercing it apart, you'll notice, look what I'm doing. I'm getting 2 plants out of this. And it has both intact roots. So what I'm gonna do is plant both of these separate. And that way you'll have more than one plant. So, sometimes when you buy peppers at a grocery store or at, the garden center, you'll see the same thing. So don't just think you need to plant those together. They're actually gonna grow better. Most vegetables are gonna grow better if you take them apart. Now, for these different heads of lettuce, it depends on the variety I'm planting. Some of them I plant up to 1 foot apart. Some of them I only plant about 8 inches apart. It just kind of depends on the variety, but you can see, because on most of these actually, it looks like I left 2 in, and I maybe did that on purpose, I don't remember. Now, if it's a really small one, I'm gonna take one of those out because there were actually 3 in here. But for these 2, I'm still gonna see how easily that happens. I'm gonna take those apart and then start planting them all up. Now, if you notice, my beds are 4 feet apart. I'm not walking on them, and that's on purpose. The whole point of a raised garden bed is to not compact the soil, to not till the soil, and instead to always keep it nice and light and easy for drainage and for roots to get through. So I am never trying to walk on my beds. That's why they're only 4 foot, so I can technically be able to access them from almost one side or easily go to the other side. But if you walk on them, that really is going to push down the soil. That's why we never till, though, a raised bed either, because that's gonna bring up weed seeds, it's gonna break up the microorganisms and all that beautiful organic matter in the soil. We don't touch it. We layer every year with our raised bed mix or a good compost. So what we have left is grandma's lettuce. I don't have the name of it. It's very similar to some other ones that I do plant. So I'm sure it is something that isn't that hard to get, but it's more the sentimental reason of it. But look how the soil blocking, I want to show you how beautiful these roots grow. Do you see how you can pick up a whole section of it? And then I don't have to disturb it too much. I just take each root or each little soil block apart. And again, a lot of these have double in them. So we're gonna have a lot of lettuce this year, but that's the beautiful part. I don't have to go buy lettuce at a grocery store. Or when I make videos of recipes, I can just come out here and use it. This to me is always the exciting part of gardening, to know that you can grow. Now, gardening isn't easy, it takes time, it takes work. You have to care for them, you have to water them, you have to watch them, but it's fulfilling too. Now for these, whether I'm worried about, not usually insects this time of year, but birds, or I have seen a rabbit kind of bouncing around here or hopping around. I am gonna use a little insect barrier. This is the same one that I'm eventually gonna use on my brassicas over there. Now you usually would put it on with hoops. For this, I'm not too worried. They're so small that if I wanna hoop it eventually, I will. But what I'm gonna do right now is just cover them so nothing can get to them. You can see light, air, water, all those good things can get through. But what I'm gonna do for now is just put a couple bricks that I have here along the edge, so on a windy day. And it has a lot of give to it, so everything in here is gonna have room to grow as it needs to or wants to. Again, I'm not worried about insects necessarily right now. So this is purely just about making sure that any rabbit or anything else does not go under there. As they grow, I can then put some metal hoops, or I have some fiberglass ones too, that I can kind of hoop or tent this across to give them more room. It also keeps dirt and debris out, which I have found with head lettuce is really nice, because as I push mow this area, but it can sometimes, even though I have the mulching attachment on, it can sometimes blow it up in. And that does work down into the heads of lettuce that you really do have to wash it even more when you go indoors, as opposed to just lightly, washing it a little bit. You have to really take it all completely apart, and there's lots of dirt inside, which I don't like to do. So if I cover it, that really helps. As we make our way up to the fountain, I thought we could do a little bit of a walk. I would hardly call it a tour, not too much is up yet, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of see what is happening. We're gonna walk around the pathway, kind of the long way to the front of the yard, and just see what's all waking up. Kind of going into evening, so we're getting a beautiful sunset. It's been really windy, so it's nice to kind of be out later in the day, use a little bit of the sunset. So we're coming up on the pathway that I put in. Remember, I extended it last year. I put in a whole bunch of new trees. This is going to be planted eventually later in the year. I will be mulching it for, retention of moisture and suppression of weeds. But you can see these big new beds are gonna be really beautiful, and these tight clipped trees, or they're gonna be clipped eventually into a nice kind of hedge around here, will be a really hidden kind of beautiful garden. The nepeta, I mowed all this off, as you saw in a video. I used my push mower, I self-mulched, so it's chopped and it's dropped right here. Everything, debris, but all the perennials now are waking up, and eventually you will see no mulch or anything in between, none of that drip line, which now I don't need to use. I used it in the first year here when I planted it, but now all these are going to be tolerant of drought and different things. I don't need to water them. But we have lots of rudbeckia. We have Caradonna salvia waking up, Carl Forster grass. There's some sanguisorbia back there. The nepeta, like I said, is really coming awake, and right here the millennium allium. So I had to move a few plants when I planted all these trees, but they're doing really well. I just today at a antique show, I had this antique bench last year, but I found, I think, an exact match right there that I will paint, and I think I'm gonna keep it off the path, which will be kind of fun. But there's mountain mint back there that's also waking up. You can really see this area is coming alive. And what I love about this is right now it looks pretty drab, looks pretty bare. In a month, these plants are gonna be so big, it will be a shocking difference. Every year I am someone that I always say there's lots of vision. Oop, I see a weed. There's lots of vision, and when, the best way to keep weeds, by the way, out of gravel path is just to blow it off regularly to keep debris out of it so it doesn't build up soil. As I'm planting every year, I think of more ideas and my vision keeps growing. Already with planting those trees, I'm thinking of how to bring that bed way out around these magnolias and make a big kind of curve to it. That's the fun part. And the thing is, I'm trying to create gardens that, while they do look like a lot, they're not actually a lot of work. You know, all this area now that I chopped and dropped it with the mower, I'm really gonna do nothing else to it the rest of the year. I watch it for weeds, of course, things like that, but once it grows in, I want it full enough that it crowds out anything like a weed, and that's really the nice part here. As we come up here, you can see I did take this edge out. I was just cleaning up here the other day. I was taking this edge out, some sod out, a little bit deeper to give this bed a little bit more, you know, just some more relaxed room, which I really do think helps a lot. I'll probably plant a few more of those prairie drop seed grasses in there. I just wanted to make sure it had plenty of room, and around this corner, if you remember last fall, I did a video on all of these daffodils. Now, the reason I love daffodils, unlike tulips, they are a easy repeat bloomer year after year and grow into bigger clumps. These are within a bed that's really becoming kind of a natural, more prairie style bed. There's lots of prairie drop seed grass. There's lots of Shenandoah switchgrass. There's lots of Baptisia in here. You know, there's just a mix of beautiful things that really do well all together. And I thought the daffodils are just a great way to add a little bit of color. You can see I did 2 big rows of them. Eventually, I would love to just keep adding more every year. So this is just a sea of daffodils in the spring before all the other perennials come up, which I like too, because then eventually the grasses and everything will just kind of overtake the daffodils once they're done and their greens start dying back. So it's kind of a nice way to add a little bit of color here. You can see that sun is making for some long shadows, but everything around here is really starting to wake up. What I want to do yet on this bed is put a big layer of heavy compost down. I haven't gotten that done yet, but I would like to cover any drip line there. These are some hosta and some hellebore that I just planted last year. So the hellebore for me take a while, but I do know in time they will do well. It just takes quite a while. And then with that new edged bed, I'll make sure to add some mulch and compost in there too. Every year obviously is going to be different, and this year I find while we were a little bit warmer earlier on, it's taking a little bit longer for things to wake up than I thought it would, which is totally fine. I think it's just one of those things, once that warmth hits, we're really kind of getting worried and we feel like we need to rush on everything, but I'm just taking it slowly as it comes. You know, there's no reason to get stressed out in gardening. We choose it, we enjoy it, we might as well just take it as it wants to give it to us. As we come around the front, oh, here comes Kipster. Come on, bud. There he is. You can see I did mow down also all of my Helen von Stein or big ear stockies. I wanted those to, I always like to mow them down. I think it controls the size a little bit. They do still branch off and want to grow into the flower bed, so I watch that or manage it as needed, but it really hasn't been too bad. What I thought we could work on here a little bit to finish up is this fountain, which I love this fountain. I put it in last year. This is an antique, old, beautiful cast iron horse trough. So it had water always going in it. It was cast iron, so I know, yes, it is prone to rusting, but it is so heavy and so thick, it's gonna last a long time. I mean, it was literally, it has the date of 1890, I believe, on it. It is going to hold water for a long time yet, but it just was looking a little bit, I did not paint it when I got it. It was painted, but I was starting to work on it and I thought we could kind of finish this up together. And when I purchased this, it was already painted. So I last year didn't really worry about it too much, but I don't know when the last time it had been painted, but I just want it to look a little bit cleaner because whether it's water, it probably, because it would be hard water actually that's in here. So this could be some calcium buildup. So I've been scraping it with a good steel brush to try to rough it up as much as you want. Now, you could also, if I had my power washer over here, which I don't right now, you could also use that on it. But what you can see I'm doing is just really trying to make sure I get this as cleaned up as I can. Now, the thing is, it's not that I'm too worried about it being perfect. Obviously, I'm putting water back in here. So I know every so often, whether it's every other year, maybe eventually I'll just want to do it every year, I'll want to have a process where I do this. While I'm not worried about it rusting through, there's always been a drainage hole in the bottom. That's what makes this work really well. I plug it and put the cord through it. But what always I know is I'm not worried about it rusting through, but I still know, well, the longevity of it's always gonna be better if I can keep it painted. So I do have a good all-in-one paint here. I just got a primer and paint that bonds to metal and everything else. And you want it to be a good outdoor paint. I mean, I think that's the key here, is this is gonna be not only exposed to the elements, it's mostly gonna have water in it at all times. But anytime you wanna paint anything, and especially when you wanna paint over old paint, you want to make sure you have it if nothing else, even if it doesn't look too much, you always want to rough up any old paint along with getting chipped paint off so the new paint adheres as good as can be. Because if you don't do that, that paint is not going to adhere. And so this is anytime we have good outdoor stuff, I make sure to keep it as nice as I can by doing this. Now, if it was more of a concrete, then you could look into different stains. Concrete stains can work really well with some of the purchased items. So I'm gonna clean this up as best I can and then lay a drop cloth out along just around on these shrubs. I don't want the boxwood to have any color. Obviously, I'm gonna let it dry overnight, but you can see now what a great patina it has. Great color, still looks old. I don't want it to be looked brand new, obviously. But now I can get it set up once it fully dries and the weather's perfect for the fountain. I should have mentioned that once I had it completely brushed, steel wooled, I did blow it out with some air to make sure that it was clean. You can also use a solvent and wipe it down too if you need to, but for an outdoor fountain, I think we did just fine. And my broom. You guys are just in all my mess. So we got a lot done today. We planted all the brassicas, we planted lettuce, went on a quick little garden tour to see how everything is waking up, painted the fountain so it's ready to go for the season. Chores are just being checked off, but guess what? I bet if I look at a list, I don't make a list. I bet if I look at one though, or would make one, it would still feel just as long. That's how it goes, and it's spring, and that's okay. So I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna make dinner, I'm gonna have a big salad tonight with some roasted chicken because I'm hungry after all this. I hope you're having a lot of garden stuff. Let me know what your weather's like, what you're doing in your garden, because I always love to hear it all.